Congratulations if you come so far, if you bear watching me with trying to explain the first two chapters of the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. As you probably understood, it's not so easy to understand, but I try to give you an introduction. I try to giving you just a surface overview of what Patanjali tries to convey. I just want to conclude by saying that so far in the first chapter, we kind of looked into what Samadhi is and kind of the purpose of yoga, which is kind of restraining the fluctuations of the mind. And then the seer abides in its own nature. To kind of succeed with that, we need to understand how this scene, all the kind of surface structure, our mental awareness is, how it shapes us, how it operates, how it kind of moves within us. In order to do that, Patanjali explains the five vrittis, the kind of surface layer, the surface patterns of our mind. The second chapter, he speaks about the subconscious patterns. But he says we need to be aware of our mental kind of patterns that constitute our awareness in order to come to a greater experience of something else. And that is done through abhyasa and vairagya. We need to practice, but we also need to let go. They're both equally important, but first, practice is necessary and practice is the key. Then he speaks about the stages of sampragnata samadhi and asampragnata samadhi. How they are, yoga is a kind of refinement of moving from the gross to the more subtle. When you look at things from the distance, you don't really know it. You just get an overview. The same thing with the thought patterns in our mind. We just get exposed to our thought patterns. Then we start to analyzing, inquiring deeper, we start to understand why of things. And then Patanjali explains, 8 objects of awareness, where the first one is Ishvara. And he explains what this Ishvara, this divine principle is, and how that cultivating an awareness of that may bring about a greater stability or inmost support in our mind. Then, of course, he speaks about the antarayas and the defaults that we're born with, and our mind have some tendencies, 9 tendencies that pull us apart and create trouble and confusion within us. And then Patanjali comes to the practice of samapatti, which is a technical term for inquiring deeper into the kind of structures and the patterns within the mind. And this is kind of a gradual process of savitarka, nirvitarka, savichara, nirvichara, 4 subtle patterns of going deeper. And this is by no means easy to understand. It takes, but he gives like the framework of what it means to go deeper into understanding objects from a gross to a subtle level, and understanding the energy that moves us from the gross to a more subtle level. Then he speaks about the subtle states that happen, of the joy that awakens when we come to that state of nirvichara, and then how we eventually come to a state of kind of spontaneous joy and a deep sense of wisdom that unfolds within us. And as that becomes more steady, Patanjali says it is possible to attain the highest state of nirbija samadhi, which is a kind of objectless awareness, an aware, luminous essence of experience the one without the other, experience the self with no context to the mind. What that is, we don't know. But Patanjali says there are 2 basic states of samadhi, sampragnata samadhi and asampragnata samadhi. The higher one is one without the other. Is it possible to explain or objectify? But it's the very support that holds life force within our body. The second chapter is, of course, how to practice, how to refine this restless mind that we embody. And he speaks first about Kriya Yoga, Tapas, Svadhyaya, and Ishvara Pranidhani, which is also the last 3 of the niyamas. So we can conclude that everything from yamas to niyamas are the very foundation of yoga. Without that, there is no yoga. There is no framework. There is no gravity for us to start embodying yoga. And then he speaks about the kleshas, that the undercurrents in our mind that rules us and create confusion and delusion within us, how to minimize these patterns, and then eventually how to break this samyoga, this connection between the seer and the seen. And what the seen consists of, how it consists of the three gunas, how it has luminous, clear tendencies, that it has kind of rajasic emotions and desires and ambition and all of this, and how it has stable tendencies. And this threesome, this trinity, needs to be balanced for it to become, the mind to become more stable and clear, so we can come to experience what lies beyond that purity of the essence, the one without the other. And as we become more aware of this samyoga, the kind of how our awareness is caught up in the seen and the seer, it's a symbiosis of the purity of consciousness, which gives life, which is a very support of life, and all these patterns that are animated from life and from our life force. And we will learn to kind of discriminate between these two, which basically potentially says the very purpose is Ashtanga Yoga. And when we kind of inquire into the yamas, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, etc., when we understand why they are there and how they can help us in our practice, we may also come closer to yoga. And we may experience a stability of center within us. It's up to you. You need to practice. You need to explore for yourself. But the more centered, the more clear, the more kind, the more loving, the greater stability you have in your mind, then you know you come closer to it. If you're more restless, more scattered, more confused, bewildered, and delusional, then you know you are in the process of becoming clearer, hopefully. Good luck with your practice. Thank you for watching, and thank you for allowing me to go deeper into this subject with you. Thank you.